Okay, so far we've learned some interesting things about adding form fields and some debugging options to our freeform application, but now we need to add a button or something so we can take an action on this information that has been collected through the application. So to do that, we'll go back to Site Palette and we'll do the same thing we've done before. So you can see the pattern here. Once you get the basics down, you can do lots of different things using the same basic mechanics when you're building a freeform application. So this time I'm going to organize my buttons into a grid, and I'm going to, I'm just going to call it L buttons. And buttons can be integrated anywhere in the form, mixed in with different fields and things, so don't have to build it this way, but a lot of times you'll see applications where you have buttons at the bottom. And buttons have no interior components by default, so I'm just going to set the exterior column definition to 24, and then for each button I want it to be 8 columns wide. So I'm going to start with this, and I will save it. And I'm going to go ahead and move it around real quick, so I'm going to edit my dashboard, go to my Contents tab, and I'm going to move it up. And just while I'm in here too, from the Page tab, you can move these options, so you'll see them here in the list, and so you can use these options here to move things up, or you can move them down. All right, so once I have my button here, now I can go and add a couple of gizmos to it. And I'll actually save here. I'm going to work directly from the button grid. Gives me a little bit more flexibility. So I'm going to flip into content mode, and I'm going to add a gizmo. And the first gizmo I'm going to add is just going to be a simple button. And I'm going to go and call it, I'm going to call it G-Submit button. And so instead of being an input field, now it's going to be a button field. And there's 4 buttons up here. The one you're going to use almost all the time is do deliver. So do deliver, and I'll explain why in a bit, is going to give us the option to do lots of different things with this button. So when we set up the do deliver button, it comes up with some default button text. You could make that anything you want: submit, save, update, delete. Confirmation text if you want to present a confirmation message to your user, like do you want to submit, kind of thing. I'm going to leave that off for now. The action condition is when we're going to disable this button. So the default is correct. We're going to disable this button if there's an error condition, if data is missing, or if the form has been completed. That means we've submitted it and come back to the application. We don't need to submit the data twice. There's other action conditions you can include, or you could remove all of these if you needed to. The label is typically not applicable here, but it is needed in some cases, so we'll skip that for now. It's same for placeholder text. And then if the button is disabled, you want to display a different message there. So without doing much here, you typically would create a button, change the text, and you would leave everything else the same. This change of state here is interesting in that the button is going to get notified on a change of state in the dashboard, and we'll talk about that when we look at the browser DOM through the debug gizmo in just a minute. All right, so I get my button all set up. It's set up to refresh the DOM when I'm finished, and I'm just going to save it. So now I have a button on my screen. So I'll go over here and refresh it. And so you can see right now that the button is disabled. And I've got a state here on my dashboard. It says missing. All right, so remember that change of state action on the button. It's looking for a change of state here. So as long as stuff is missing, it's not going to even check to see if it should validate the button. I'll type in Craig, and the state just changes to missing and partial, so we're checking to see if the state's good. Sumner, the state's not good yet. See Sumner at itrium.com. The state's good. It's valid. My button's active. So now I can submit it. So if I submit it right now, it submits it and does nothing. All right, so that's it for adding a button. Next video will show you what you can put inside that button.